when Lewis Hamilton crossed the finish line at the Red Bull Ring in P4. The headlines didn't say much. To most fans watching, it was just another solid result. No podium, no champagne, and no big celebration, but deep inside the Ferrari garage, something very different was happening. That result, though not eye-catching on paper, revealed a change that has been slowly growing inside the team. A change not built on dramatic moments, but on calm, focused execution, and at the heart of that quiet transformation is Lewis Hamilton, alongside his race engineer, Riccardo Adami. This wasn't about trophies. It wasn't about beating Red Bull or McLaren. It was about something more meaningful: structure. The structure of how a team operates under pressure, how it prepares, how it reacts. For a team like Ferrari, which has long been known for emotional highs and lows, that structure has been missing for years. But now, things are starting to shift, and Hamilton is at the center of that shift. From the outside, Ferrari's performance in Austria didn't look too different. Charles Leclerc qualified well, and both cars were in the mix, but not exactly fighting for the win. Red Bull was strong, McLaren was pushing hard, and Ferrari looked like they were just behind. But if you look deeper, the real story wasn't about where the cars finished. It was about how they got there. Lewis Hamilton's race in Austria was the perfect example of quiet control. There were no bold overtakes or dramatic team orders. What stood out was how smooth everything was. Every pit stop, every radio call, every small decision, they all came together like clockwork. And this level of execution doesn't happen by accident. It comes from planning, preparation, and most importantly, trust. The trust between Hamilton and his engineer, Riccardo Adami. Riccardo Adami is no stranger to high-pressure situations. He worked with Sebastian Vettel during his time at Ferrari, helping him through some of the most intense races of his career. Adami is known for his calm voice and sharp mind, and now, with Hamilton, he seems to have found the perfect match. The communication between them is short, clear, and direct. No emotion, no confusion. Just the professionals doing their job at the highest level. During the Austrian Grand Prix, this connection between driver and engineer was on full display. The strategy wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Hamilton started on the medium tire, which many saw as a safe option. But what made it work so well was how flexible it allowed him to be. With Adami monitoring the data in real-time tire temperatures, energy recovery, track evolution, they were able to adjust the plan without needing to take risks. This wasn't a Ferrari team reacting to others. It was a Ferrari team running its own race on its own terms. By lap 23, the signs were already clear. Most of the grid was struggling with rear tire wear, especially in the middle sector of the track. But Hamilton's data looked different. His tires were holding up better. His traction out of corners was stable. His braking points weren't shifting. This kind of control comes from more than just talent behind the wheel. It comes from a system that works driver and engineer, both knowing what the other needs, without needing to say much, and this system showed its value again in the closing laps. With Sergio Perez closing in, most drivers would have been forced to defend on instinct. But Hamilton had prepared for this. To laps before the fight, he started saving his battery power, making sure he'd have enough deployment to hold Perez off when it really mattered. This was a decision made in advance, not a reaction. It's this kind of thinking that separates good teams from great ones, and for Ferrari, it's the kind of thinking that's been missing for far too long. Hamilton's arrival at Ferrari was never going to be just about driving fast. It was always going to be about what he brings to the team, the experience, the discipline, the consistency, and most of all, the mindset. A mindset built during years of success with Mercedes, where structure and execution were everything. Now, he's bringing that mindset to Ferrari, and already it's starting to take hold. For years, Ferrari has struggled on Sundays. Strategy errors, miscommunication, and last-minute decisions have cost them valuable points. But in Austria, something was different. Hamilton and Adami weren't waiting for orders from the pit wall. They were making the calls themselves, and those calls were right. This kind of freedom inside Ferrari is rare. The team has long been built around a centralized command structure. But Hamilton is showing that when you give the right people the right tools and the trust, they can deliver. Even though Charles Leclerc was ahead early in the race, the focus inside the garage was shifting. It wasn't about who had track position. It was about who was controlling the race from within. And that control, that calm under pressure, was coming from Hamilton's side of the garage. After the race, There were no big celebrations, no shouting, just a quiet moment between Hamilton and Adami, a short exchange. No cameras needed, no grand statements, just a people who knew they had done their job well. That's the kind of culture Ferrari is beginning to build, a culture based not on emotion, but on execution, and this isn't just about one race. Over the past few rounds, Hamilton has been building momentum. He's outqualified Leclerc in 2 of the last 4 races. He's outraced him in 3, and he's done it with fewer mistakes. The points are starting to show that, but more importantly, the pattern is becoming clear. Hamilton is bringing consistency, and in Formula One, consistency is what wins titles. You don't win championships with a few big results. You win them by performing every single weekend, by making the right calls, by avoiding mistakes. And that's what Hamilton and Adami are starting to bring to Ferrari. This new direction at Ferrari feels familiar in some ways. Back in 2013, when Hamilton left McLaren to join Mercedes, many questioned the move. Mercedes wasn't a top team at the time, but Hamilton saw something others didn't. He saw a team he could help shape, a team he could build with, and alongside engineer Peter Bonington, he did just that. Together, they formed one of the most successful driver-engineer pairings in the history of the sport. Now, the same thing might be happening again, just in a red car this time. Riccardo Adami has been through many phases at Ferrari. He was there during the rebuild after Fernando Alonso. He worked with Vettel during the highs and lows of that partnership. He stayed through the Sainz and Leclerc period, watching the team struggle to find its rhythm. But now, with Hamilton, Adami seems to have found something new. Clarity, purpose, focus. Their roles are clear, their goals are aligned, and the trust between them is already strong. Austria was a test of that system. A race where every detail had to be right, from pit stop timing to energy usage, from tire management to defending on worn rubber. Everything had to work, and it did. It didn't look spectacular, but it looked correct. And that's what makes the difference over a long season, because in Formula One, it's not just about having a fast car, it's about making the most of it, week in, week out. It's about building a system that works even when things don't go your way, a system that doesn't crack under pressure, a system that keeps getting better. That's what Hamilton is building at Ferrari. Not a team that hopes for good results, but a team that plans for them, that prepares for them, that earns them. Already, parts of the team are starting to change. Hamilton's approach is spreading not because it's being forced on people, but because it works. His calm, methodical style is influencing not just inside of the garage, but also the way others prepare. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful. With races like Silverstone, Hungary, and Spa coming up, tracks where Hamilton has always performed well, the momentum could start to build even faster. These aren't just opportunities for points. They're chances to prove that this new Ferrari can compete, not just in single races, but across the whole season. And if that happens, the story will change. This won't be about Hamilton joining Ferrari. It will be about Hamilton leading Ferrari. Team boss Fred Vasseur still controls the direction of the team overall, but on race weekends, the execution, the part that decides everything, is now largely in the hands of Hamilton and Adami. Their ability to make the right calls under pressure is becoming Ferrari's biggest strength. And in a sport where tiny details decide everything, that strength is priceless. Hamilton isn't demanding change at Ferrari. He's showing what's possible. And now, the rest of the team is starting to follow. The car is more stable, the results are improving, and the belief is growing. Austria didn't bring a podium, but it brought something more valuable: a plan.